One of the stories that I have always found really interesting is the idea of Old Green Eyes. One of the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War was the Battle of Chickamauga, which was up along the Georgia-Tennessee border. And there are indications that there was always something kind of strange in the area. Supposedly there were some Native American myths about it. But what does seem to have happened is sometime in the aftermath of the battle, there was this thing that appeared called Old Green Eyes. And depending on the description, it either had long hair or it was covered entirely in hair, but it was a two-legged creature that was enjoying feasting on the corpses of the downed soldiers. And these Old Green Eye legends continue to this day up there along the battlefield. And you can find lots of residents who have seen these eyes peering at them out of the mist. Sometimes it's described as a Bigfoot-like creature. Sometimes it's a soldier who lost his head from a cannonball or something along those lines. But what seems to be apparent is that this myth has taken on a life of its own and may even stretch back before the war even took place.
Now, the idea that there may have been a reason for some ghostly apparition to haunt these fields before the battle even took place may not be so far-fetched, because the name Chickamauga, which is derived from the Chickamauga Creek that flows through the battlefield, according to some historians, literally translates to River of Death. Not because the water is stagnant, rather because this is the location where the Native Americans were given blankets covered in smallpox. But what does all of this have to do with Bigfoot? Are we talking about a ghost, or are we talking about a Sasquatch? Well, according to Josh Cutchin, the two may be the same.
If you take a look at the things that happen in the forest in what the BFRO calls Class B reports, they bear a startling resemblance to a lot of the activity that you see in poltergeist infestations. We're talking about things like thrown stones that are often warm, anomalous vocalizations, footprints even, strange smells, just strange noises, and of course the knocks. I mean, knocks are a very, very common poltergeist manifestation. The only thing that really differentiates those Class B Bigfoot reports from a traditional poltergeist infestation that you find in a house is the setting. So, a strange light seen in the sky as a UFO, a strange light seen in an old house is a ghost, and a strange light seen around a Neolithic ring fort is a fairy in the old world. And so the poltergeist / Wildnisgeist idea is sort of an outgrowth of that observation. Lots of cryptozoologists have noted that some of these Bigfoot reports sound a lot like poltergeist activity, but I came up with the idea of Wildnisgeist as wilderness spirit, to use this term, because unless you saw Bigfoot, you can't guarantee that Bigfoot did it. I think that this idea that this may be some sort of spirit manifestation gets a little bit of additional strength from the fact that in a lot of poltergeist activity, people report hairy things. So the two places that you would see poltergeists were in like a traditional haunting, maybe associated with some of that old world fairy phenomena, but you'd also see it in seances. And as luck would have it, one of the most common manifestations in seances is the manifestation of hairy hands or other hairy appendages. And there are examples from the historical record where people in seances have seen things that look like cavemen or large apes or large hairy wildmen. Stan Gooch, who was a researcher and paranormal author, saw something to that description himself. And you can find that right there in the writings. So you have poltergeist activity in seances, and you have these sort of wildmen figures manifesting in seances. Who's to say that something similar isn't happening in our forests? And we just don't recognize it as such because we have this Bigfoot mythology around it.
Former Chief Ranger and park historian Edward Tenney said that sightings of Old Green Eyes were not uncommon. In fact, he had one himself. He said while he was walking down Glen Kelly Road, which runs adjacent to Snodgrass Hill, he saw a man approach him. He said this man had a long black duster and long, dark, shaggy hair. This was at 4 a.m. when Mr. Tenney was going to check on some people that were doing some Civil War reenactment. As he saw the man approach, he felt that by the body language he was using, he may mean Mr. Tenney harm. So Mr. Tenney stepped to the other side of the street. As he did, this man passed him and smiled menacingly. Mr. Tenney said he could see the glow in his eyes, and just then, a car turned and its headlamps hit this apparition that instantly disappeared. In addition to this, it's been reported that disembodied heads with glowing green eyes float around the fields of the Chickamauga Battlefield at night. It's also been said that a woman in white, sometimes holding a lantern, walks around Snodgrass Hill looking for her deceased husband. Sometimes it's even been said that this apparition takes the form of a large cat. The first sighting that I've ever heard of related to Old Green Eyes takes place during the aftermath of the battle itself. It's said that a wounded soldier saw an apparition of a large cat. He described it as tiger-like or panther-like. He said it had glowing green eyes and was prowling around the field looking for someone to devour. It's even been suggested by some paranormal researchers that this statue that overlooks Snodgrass Hill may sometimes come to life.
There is a shocking correlation that you can make between the sightings of large anomalous cats, oftentimes black cats, which we shouldn't have in North America, and Bigfoot sightings. This is obvious in some like North American logging folklore where you'll see the word wampus being used interchangeably for Bigfoot and for a large cat. And there are reports of Bigfoot being seen in the same areas as these large cats. The Big Thicket in Texas is a great example of a place where you see ghost lights and large cats and Bigfoot all in the same area.
Within the story of Old Green Eyes, we have large cats, Bigfoot, and ghosts all hanging out together, all with one thing in common: glowing green eyes. But is there precedent in Bigfoot sighting reports to suggest that this supposed relic hominid possesses glowing eyes? Well, surprisingly, the answer is yes.
There is a commonly reported feature in Bigfoot reports that the eyes seem to glow. The common explanation for this from a biological perspective is that their eyes are reflecting ambient light. We've all seen this with a lot of different animals in the forest. You know, it's kind of fun sometimes to drive through a rural area and pass a field and just shine a flashlight in the field and spot all the deer, because there's actually a reflective component in their eyes called a tapetum lucidum. The main problem with that is that great apes lack a tapetum lucidum. They don't have that reflective surface. So the question becomes, what is this source of eye shine or eye glow that you see in these Bigfoot reports? And if you read the reports carefully, some of them do seem to be describing eye shine. That's I think you have to acknowledge that. But other reports are very specific about the eyes having a sort of an internal light, an internal glow about them, almost to the extent that they would sort of peer around like the eye of Sauron, and then like you could see a beam coming out of them. And that's just not something that we see in the animal kingdom. And even if it was something that, for whatever reason, Bigfoot, the flesh and blood relict primate, can do, it's just one of about a dozen other things where it's the only animal on Earth that can do that.
So what do we make of the story of Old Green Eyes? Is it a ghost story? Is it a Bigfoot story? Is it a little bit of both? Is Bigfoot a little bit of both? I don't know. So what do we make of this? Is Bigfoot natural? Is he supernatural? Do those words mean anything in the way that we think they mean? If you want to learn more, I highly suggest checking out Where the Footprints End. This is a 2-volume set by Josh and Tim Renner. These books are foundational and fundamental if you want to understand the phenomenon of Bigfoot in a bigger world view. This is not a new phenomenon, and these guys do a brilliant job breaking down all the weird and unusual things associated with this phenomenon and how they may link to other stories of folklore really since the beginning of time. And if you like these videos and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. It really does go a long way. And these days, my friends, every little bit helps. Thanks, and God bless.